On this episode of Human Capital Gains, we have Kirsten Moorfield from Cloverleaf. Kirsten, it's good to see you again.
Hey, Gary. Great to be talking to you publicly on display.
I know, right? So tell everybody a little bit about Cloverleaf before we move on to anything else.
I'm a co-founder of Cloverleaf. It is something that 10 years ago I started talking about with a colleague, and we started working on it. And we, a few years later, launched what we called an AI coach in 2018. It actually didn't do so great because the market was really nervous about that concept. So we changed the language. We called it automated coaching. And it's exciting to be in that world now because today everyone is talking about AI coaching. And that is something we now have, 7 years of our teeth cut on of experience of, hey, what are people looking for with this? How does it compare to human coaches? We've done a lot of academic research on that. And I have strong opinions, which we could get into today. But I'll just leave it at that. Cloverleaf is an AI coach that is using psychology-based assessments. So you think your DISC, your Clifton Strengths Finder, your Enneagram, those assessments. And then we translate that into coaching in the flow of work for people in their Microsoft Teams, their calendars, their emails, where we're coaching them on the people who are their success is dependent on for that day.
What are you seeing? You're right. AI coaching is buzzword right now and everybody's using it. But I think what you're doing is slightly different than how a lot of people are using it. And I think how a lot of people are using the term of AI coaching is something that we've talked about before, which is using ChatGPT like a therapist.
Yes.
So what are the parallels there and how does your platform do it differently?
Yeah, so I think ChatGPT can be an excellent therapist or a terrible therapist, and it just depends on how you're prompting it. So I went to ChatGPT recently and I had a headline I was trying to work out. I said, hey, I want this language, this thing. What do you think? Give me an alternative perspective. And it said, oh, I think that you should do, this totally different thing. And I said, no, I like what I did originally. And it's like, that's a fantastic idea. Go with your original idea, right? And so if you think of that in terms of therapy, therapists are supposed to help you see a different perspective. And coaching is very different than therapy, but coaching is also supposed to help you see a broader perspective. And I think that ChatGPT can be very helpful if you are asking it for that. But if you are going to it for confirmation, you're going to get confirmation, right? And so I think the best AI coaches, and there's quite a few out there that do very different things, they're really there to help train somebody and give somebody reps in something that is an outside perspective expanding type of conversation.
What are you seeing? I noticed that you said that you had a lot of research that backs how your platform has really helped move that conversation. What are the essential skills that ground what your platform provides people? And how do you see that shifting now, this new AI for all paradigm?
Like, what are the skills that matter today
Yeah.
in the world?
Yeah. In the world. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's go there. So, who we sell to, who we've really been consulting with and working with for about a decade now is learning leaders and talent leaders inside of organizations. So we're very close to the conversation right now on what are the skills that matter the most. And I just 2 weeks ago was with a number of learning leaders and I got to talk with the chief learning officer at Google. And what he was saying, I thought really summed up a lot of what we're hearing in the market right now, which is that, the shelf life of skills is diminishing. So a skill that you learned in the 80s, like you learned, some code language or, a product that you would use for your job, and you would use that for about 10 years. It would be relevant, helpful, it would expand your career, and it would provide value to your organization for about a decade. Today, well, actually, recently, the most recent study on that was that it was down to 2 years. That study was from a few years ago. And really, it's hard to study today because it's changing so fast that, you can learn a program or have a tool for your job that's only relevant for a few months before there's something significantly better that hits the market that if you don't start using, your competition is going to get ahead of you. And you just have to constantly be learning new technical things. So with that chaotic landscape, the skills that matter most, what people are really starting to hone in on, are what's called foundational skills. So Harvard Business Review came out with an article a few weeks ago That's actually it published research that was actually done, I think, pre-2020, where for about a decade and a half, it was following millions of job transitions and the skills that mattered for growing your career and providing more value and impact to your organization. And it called the skills that matter, it called them foundational skills. So in that is everything you think of for soft skills or human skills. How do you manage conflict? How do you give feedback? How do you receive feedback? How do you take in divergent perspectives and come together and solve complex problems together? But it also talked about foundational math skills and logic skills and how do you have that baseline computing ability in your brain to learn that new tool that's going to come out in 2-3 months. And I think it's really interesting because that study was actually done pre AI boom, but I
Yeah.
think the AI boom is just really putting an exclamation point on that right now because as AI can, you know, automate your month end book closing, or it can automate writing your code for you while you sleep, as it can do those things,
Yeah.
then really what is it that's going to make a difference for an organization? If anybody can get those tactical tasks done, the skills that are going to matter is, can you actually focus on the right task? Can you solve the problem correctly? Can you focus your AI agent on the thing that matters most? And how do you figure that out? You figure that out by working with people who have different information than you and being curious and listening to them and wading through ambiguity and complexity and hard feelings because we're all scared of failing and navigate those waters together to get the actual AI and task focused things doing the right thing.
It's funny because we deal with a broad spectrum of companies, and we're finding that companies that are kind of like more established and their processes are more established are struggling more right now in the age of AI because it's always been very black and white, right? And we're very much in a world of gray right now. And those companies that have had to younger companies have that built-in agility because they need to pivot constantly, right? And it's building that built-in agility is really a difficult task. How can we better upskill, for lack of a better term? Can we upskill that, or can we train people to be more receptive of that to kind of like increase that fluidity or that agility?
Okay, so I love what the chief learning officer at Google said 2 weeks ago, which is that we think of it as agility, but actually, to him, the core competency that matters today more than ever is courage. Because courage is the ability to walk into ambiguity with not enough information and a lot of eyes on you and a lot of opportunity to fail and still making a choice, aiming the arrow and shooting it, right? And so I really like how he said that. And I think to your question on how does an organization actually help somebody do that? How does an organization upskill their workforce? Of course, I'm going to say AI can help coach everyone get there. And that's actually the beautiful thing about the moment that we are in right now. And I like to think of AI as a neutral tool, but it's a really powerful tool, right? So like wood is really neutral and it can either make you a house or it can make you a weapon. And the more powerful a tool is, the more good and bad it can do, right? I mean, just think of, I won't say anything because it's probably going to get political if I'd say anything at all on that front. But you can think of how, the more powerful something is, the harder it is to remain neutral, but also the more good it can create and the more damage it can create, right? And AI is that way. It is so powerful. And so, yes, we are in a moment where it can replace people and create poverty and remove jobs and all of those potential scary things that we all think that could happen and worse, right? But also, it can be the tool that helps us not do that. It can be the tool that moves us forward into where it brings more prosperity and it brings more opportunity for people, democratized opportunities for folks. The way that an organization can help their people with that is, I think, being really open with the fact that we are in a stance of ambiguity, a time of change, a time of rapid evolution, and that we are here to meet the moment as an organization. Whatever your organization does, it's being disrupted right now,
Right.
except for maybe like dentistry. Maybe that one's
Right.
not disrupted.
Well, yeah, even I mean healthcare in general, right? So I
Yeah,
mean like dentistry is even like as far as the imaging side is being disrupted right now.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Everything is being disrupted right now.
Yeah.
I even know somebody who works in HVAC, and actually they have to keep up on the AI side because it can automate, back office stuff that if they don't do, their competitors will, and they'll get more opportunities, right? So everything's being disrupted. You are right, Gary, even dentistry. And so I think being as leaders, it's so critical that we meet this moment for our people with a lot of clarity of, hey, we're up against challenges, but also empathy and inspiration of we can do this and we can meet this moment and here's how we're equipping you and here's how we're investing in you. And I think AI coaching is such an incredible opportunity for us to provide to our people because it can meet everyone in the moment they're at with the context of their unique individual situation and give them the information that they need. Like, I remember when way back 6 months ago, and for a few years before that, when in learning and development, we would talk about what we can provide personalized learning opportunities for people where it would say, congratulations, you're now a manager too. Here's 400 videos you could watch that are helpful to manager twos, right? And that was personalized. Today with AI, personalized is Gary, you're new to this team. You have these three direct reports and in their with their previous manager, we can tell from their employee engagement scores that they felt these stressors and these wins, these great helpful things. Gary, we know from your 360s that have happened over the past 3 years, you've been trending up on these leadership competencies, and that's great, but you also have room to grow in this one. And Gary, we know, all of these things about you, and we can coach. We know you took this training on this, radical candor, let's say, and it's really helped you a lot in caring personally and challenging directly. And so we can coach you in the language of radical candor to the leadership competency you need to grow in for the new team with the stress they have that you're inheriting, right? All of that can get coached by a tool, which
Right.
is amazing.
Yeah. That is pretty amazing. And we're finding too, and I think the point that you just made is fascinating because the fact that AI can bring people along to be able to work with and implement AI in a more meaningful way is very meta statement,
It
right?
is.
But we probably couldn't get there without AI at this point, right? Because we wouldn't be able to kind of personalize that learning in a meaningful way. We wouldn't be able to identify the needs that are discretely associated with that learning, right? I mean, you look at that MIT study that came out where 95% of AI initiatives fail. If you look at a lot of the other research that have come out in other ways, from Boston Consulting and McKinsey, most of these initiatives are failing because you're not bringing your people and your processes along. Companies are coming in and bringing in like a blanket program that they think is going to cure all of their ills, or they just had to, say that they were doing something in AI because the market stakeholders, shareholders, were saying, hey, what are we doing with AI? So they just bought something and now they're turning around to everybody and saying like, hey, nobody's using this how we thought they were going to because you didn't tell them how to, or you didn't
Right.
tell them what the business goals behind doing that
Well,
were.
well, of course. I mean, most of the times when we now have people coming to us and saying, hey, oh, you're an AI coach. That's amazing because we need to use AI. And we'll say, great, what are your goals? And they'll say, using it.
Right.
And I don't actually think that's an insult at all. I think things have changed so quickly. We just know we need to be experimenting and we know there are opportunities that didn't exist before. And honestly, I think it's good that we're not coming at it saying, well, you're going to measure it the way I measured my LMS or my leadership development program or something that, you could even do 3 years ago. I think like those measurements should be blown out of the water today with what you
Uh,
can do and what you can measure and the moments that you can be in and collecting information from your people for your people, right? And so I think that like we recognize internally most of our customers do not know what success looks like for them, and that's on us to help them with. And I think that's on a lot of vendors. And I think people should hold their vendors very accountable right now because vendors are the ones sitting in the world of we're talking to all your peers, we are watching the competitive landscape. We know what is possible more than you because your job entails all these other things, right? So we should be able to help, HR leaders, CFOs, CIOs decide on their technology and how it can help their people. Um, and yeah, I think this is a great moment to hold vendors more accountable.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think especially L&D teams, I think are struggling with this for so long. Exactly what you said. Their method of accountability was completion rate, seat time. So what we're really finding is like learning and development teams really need help transitioning to this kind of like business impact function. How can you prove that you're actually moving the business along? How can you prove that there's a return on this investment in for a team that's been essentially labeled a cost center at this
Right.
point?
Right. 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 Yeah. And I think that's such a hopeful moment,
I
Gary,
do.
because I've been talking to L&D leaders and talent leaders, especially L&D, where they've said for years, we want a strategic seat at the table. It's so hard to prove our impact. And today, that's possible. It is totally possible. It is possible to be a better partner. It's not that L&D wasn't a good partner to business. It's possible to prove better
Right.
how you're such a helpful
Well, they
partner.
weren't really asked to be.
You don't think so? I think they were.
I don't think at any point. I think once, like, I think L&D for the most part just got funneled in the past like 10 years with compliance for the most part, right? And then
Fortunately,
and then COVID came along, and COVID was kind of like the accelerator of content, right? So it's like we didn't know what we needed anymore. We used to be able to kind of like train people live. So it's like, hey, just give me the JC Penney catalog, and I'm dating myself there, the JC Penney catalog of content, right? So
yeah.
everybody can self serve and figure out what they need. And then they didn't really create any pathways or create really personalized learning experiences, or like you said, your personalized learning experience was this 300 courses, right? And then all of a sudden we came out of this, emerged after COVID being like, oh, we can't really track the efficacy of any of this anymore because there's so much content, right? How are we going to do that? And I think that really recently has changed that conversation dramatically.
Yeah. And a lot of solutions came up to try to help with that, like learning experience platforms
Right.
and all of that. But even still there, it put so much load on the everyday employee to set up and to, sift through. And even when it was personalized, I exaggerated with here's 400 videos, but it was still too general to solve my stress of today. That meeting I'm walking into with that jerk that I work with, it wasn't immediately pain pill enough
Yeah.
to drive usage, consumption, and then a behavior change, the real, North Star we all have. But today, that's possible. And not only is it possible, it should be expected. Anything less should not be expected. It
Oh,
should
I
not be
100.
tolerated.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Where are you finding I see the clear use case for your tool, and I see the clear use case on being able to track efficacy of your tool. How do you feel your sphere of influence is now moving in D to be more accountable?
Like, how are we helping them be more accountable?
Hmm.
I actually think what's very fascinating to watch, this was happening for the past few years, it's really being accelerated right now, is that there is becoming a merging of many functions under HR and talent. So, talent management, in some cases is just, hiring and acquisition, but in many cases it's where performance management sits and it's where career pathing and internal mobility sits, whereas L&D is where development plans and like courses and learning and leadership development sit. And why are those separate? Because everything needed to be so manual before. But today, it doesn't make any sense today that an employee has, hundreds of data points inside their organization scattered across 50 different tools with four different departments that manage that separately. All of that data should be working for your employees. It should be working
100%.
to hit their passion, their goals, their way of thinking, the people that their success depends on. All of that should be in concert for their day to day to make them successful and make them feel invested into, because that's going to make the organization the most successful, right? Course, it just is going to make you the most innovative. Your people are going to be advancing the most. You're going to have your bench filled for your succession planning the best. You're going to have, the most creative ideas coming up to the top. You're going to have all of that happening when every individual employee is invested into daily by all that data, sifted through by technology to give them the prompts that they need to make them successful in the moment with that.
And also having all of that data that you can extrapolate and then tie to overarching business strategy too, so you know what's effective, right? You know what's actually moving the needle to the bottom or top line as well, right?
Yes. Yes. I mean, yes, all of the data an organization has should be able to come together to make every individual the most successful. And no individual, by the way, is successful on an island. It's so much about our ability to collaborate today. It's so much about the people on their team. It's about those cross-functional meetings with that person they haven't met with ever or just 3 times last year, that kind of a thing. And how do we make them successful in that? And I think, Gary, I just can't get through this conversation without saying, I know we opened this talking about ChatGPT for therapy. I think that AI cannot replace human interaction. I think AI should support human connection, true human relationships, curiosity about each other, ability to collaborate with each other. And when it is doing that, it is helping us be the best versions of ourselves, but it's also making our organizations the most successful, right? Because it's only humans can best guess human behavior and what's going to sell in the market. Like, I got to say, I never predicted that like the mullets and the mustaches would be back for Gen Z. Like that was not on my radar. And I don't think AI would have predicted that one either, right? Like there's something so complicated and nuanced about human behavior that when it comes to truly inventing and creating products that are going to serve the world, AI cannot replace that. And we need our humans to work together and have empathy and complex problem solving and good, genuine joy and connection at work so that they are doing their best and the organization is the most competitive it can be.
Yeah, we're finding, and I think the research backs this up as well, that organizations that are taking a human centered approach to AI to augment and supplement their teams rather than replace are finding far more success, not only from a
Right.
business perspective, but from an employee health perspective, from a talent management perspective. All of them are coalescing in the fact that we're providing you with this incredibly powerful tool so you're better at your job. Or you can do your job easier, or you can focus on the things that are either more important to you or more important to the company. Like, use this to find time to generate joy in areas that you prefer to focus. Teams that are hesitant to use AI, one of the first things I say, well, like, what part of your job do you hate doing? And everybody has something there. Let's automate that. Let's automate that and get that off of your plate and out of your way so you can focus more on what you love doing.
Yes. 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 Do you think that people still think AI will take away jobs and cause higher unemployment?
I do. And until we stop seeing companies directly relating layoffs to AI, like large companies.
Hmm. Hmm.
Salesforce just came out again and said that they laid off employees because of AI. I think certain roles are always going to be a little nervous, but I think that people just have to be willing to adapt and understand that roles are going to change. I mean, how I worked 3 months ago is different than how I'm working now.
The shelf life of skills, right? It
Yeah,
is
100%.
tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that, and just that willingness to adapt. And I love how you positioned it as courage, because it really is. It's just a willingness to jump into the unknown and say, let's try it this way.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you give me credit for that. That was Brian Glazer, the chief learning officer of Google, but thank you.
But I didn't hear it from Brian. I heard it from you. So as I talk
Angelize
to
it for
everybody
him.
now, it's going to be from you.
We'll continue to give him credit. He was a smart.
That's great. So as we are wrapping up, give me one point of wisdom that you want to share with everybody.
Oh, I think at the end of the day, it's all about relational curiosity. I think that the skill, if you think of, the foundational skills, the human skills, the skills Google is talking about, the skills that everyone is talking about, I know we have different words for it, is a foundational human soft skills. Those skills, I think, all come down to, can we be curious in our relationships? When that jerk says that thing to you again, do you jump to saying, gosh, I hate that guy, Or do you think, I wonder what he means by that, and ask a question and create a moment of, let's clarify this? Because the truth is, I mean, we work in psychology data. There are millions and millions and millions of different ways characteristics can be combined. Everybody truly is a snowflake if you look at the math behind psychology. So, what I think you mean when you ask me that question is probably incorrect because I can never fully understand your brain. And so, chances are you're not a jerk. You're just more detail oriented or analytical or future minded or something than I am. And if I can be curious in that relationship, I will relieve myself of a lot of stress, but I will also get the information that will make both of us more successful. So I think AI should be built to promote that curiosity in our relationships. And I think that if you want to summarize what's going to make people successful, what's going to make organizations successful, is if that is a hallmark in the culture, relational curiosity.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Of
I
course.
loved this
Having me.
conversation, and hopefully we can do it again soon.